And that brings us to our story today about Gonzalo Lira, who has gone missing. He's an amazing journalist. We mentioned it in passing last night, but he has still not turned up. And there are concerns today that, of course, that he could have been captured by what he called Zelensky's thugs, rounded up and killed. At least that's one of the messages appearing on his Twitch channel this afternoon. Gonzalo Lira, though, is a Chilean reporter. He's been silent for about 4 days now, many fearing the worst. He was unable to flee Ukraine when the war broke out, and he went viral at the time for criticizing. I mean, he criticized Zelensky for releasing hardcore criminals from prison and arming them with assault rifles to fight the Russians. He said he was more afraid of the hordes of criminals that Zelensky armed than the Russian military itself. Lira said Zelensky's trying to get as many civilians killed as possible in order to have atrocity propaganda to drag the U.S. and Europe into a full-fledged war.
Well, he says other things that are controversial, right, that they don't want. For instance, there was a thread of tweets just last week where he accused the Ukrainian government for giving drugs to soldiers, sort of euphoria-type drugs that would make it so that they don't feel despondent about being in a war that's made by decisions that they don't make, right? He also talked about the imminent defeat of Ukraine. He did recently tweet about Elon Musk's bid for Twitter and how this is not about money, but about control. Agree. And he has retweeted Patrick Lancaster's reports as of late, the ones we just showed you, the man who is American, who's been living in Ukraine for 8 years and reporting from the ground in their native tongue, right? He has been retweeting those as well. And he did mention a couple weeks ago, this was not recent, but he said there are certain people that Zelensky doesn't want you to know about. Here is the list of names. And if you don't hear from me in a certain amount of time, then put my name on this list. Now, this was posted at the end of March, and we did hear from him within 12 hours. But he was set to make a major media appearance just 2 days ago, and he no-showed for it. The media studio said, we have not heard from him.
So
this video? Okay.
Yeah, so this is George Galloway. We should set this up. This is George Galloway. He hosts an amazing show. If you haven't watched it, the mother of all talk shows, he does an amazing job getting the truth out there. He was set to have Gonzalo, drink him if you got him. He was set to have Gonzalo Lira on his show, and he didn't show up. And Scott Ritter was on as well. So here was the setup as he was waiting for him to appear on the show.
Of Gonzalo Lira, from whom we haven't heard since Friday when he agreed to come on the show. The airwaves are crackling with anxiety, even fear, at the sudden silence of the brave, intrepid war correspondent, a filmmaker, author, businessman trapped in Kharkov in the middle of the hell that is the war between NATO and Russia.
So that was April 17th. Then this was a little bit later as well.
Still no connection to Gonzalo Lira, nor any confirmation that he was live on with Scott Ritter, but we are seeking to contact Scott Ritter to establish that latter point, and still desperately seeking Gonzalo Lira. He made a very clear commitment to appear on the show tonight. It's not in character for him simply to disappear.
And that's what he's done. He's disappeared. This was one of his reports from a short time ago where he talked, this was before the full-fledged war broke out, where he was concerned. He had called out Zelensky arming these thugs with releasing these hardcore convicted criminals from prison, arming them to fight against the Russians. And this is what he said.
2022, as you can see, that's the VIP club of the Premier Palace Hotel. I'm walking down to Krashatik, and I'm going to the supermarket to get some food. They've announced that it's okay to go to supermarkets and pharmacies. The problem that we're having is that because of the weapons that the Zelensky regime handed out willy-nilly in the last few days, a lot of criminals have these military-grade weapons, quite frankly. And so there's been robberies, there's been looting, there's been rapes, there's been all kinds of havoc because of these criminals. And it's known for a fact that a lot of the shooting that went on last night in Kiev had nothing to do with the Russians. The Russians were 10 kilometers or more away from these shootings, so it was clearly probably gang related, gangs settling scores and shooting one another.
So, and even more than that, so the shooting that he's referring to, remember, the Russians aren't even here yet, okay? They're 10 kilometers away. And here is his reporting from the window as these criminals are like taking to the streets and killing people randomly. This is the Russians are 10 kilometers away. This is in the city. So this reporting likely got him killed. I mean, let's be frank about it. It's absolutely sad right now that Gonzalo Lira, an amazing reporter, was scheduled to be on that show, has no showed. He's been missing now for over 3 days or longer, depending on what, those who had contact with him last. And so to put kind of a bow on this, Scott Ritter was on with George Galloway a short time later to confirm not being able to speak with him and to confirm some of these reports about the Azov battalion and the Nazis who have been killing civilians in this region. And here's what Scott Ritter had to say. U.S. Marine Scott Ritter confirming these reports.
Kharkov is definitely a city that is firmly in the grip of the Nazis, and anybody who lives in that city, such as Mr. Lira, who is not of that political persuasion, is at risk.
Well, that's very sobering indeed. Let's all pray on this Easter Sunday that he reappears and that we see and hear from him soon. It's sad that the hopes that we had, that he had in fact spoken with you today, are dashed. We also spoke to him on Friday, and that's the last, I think, that any of us have spoken with him.
Kharkov is definitely a city that is firmly in the grip of the Nazis, and anybody who lives in that city, such as Mr. Lira, who is not of that political persuasion, is at risk.
Yeah.
Maybe he has COVID.
Okay.
That's possible.
Yeah.
That would be the best case scenario, right?
Yeah, rather than being killed by Nazis. Yeah, I'd take COVID over that.
I'm just sort of
making a joke.
No, I'm not making a joke. I'm hoping for the best. Like, I'm thinking of possible. I didn't mean that as insensitive at all, but sometimes when people fall off the map in this day and age, it's possible that they just are down and out with COVID. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what other possible explanation would send somebody who has made it their vocation to speak out about the war be quiet. I can't. Well, you know me. I'm always trying to think around something. Like, is there a way to think?
The only thing I can think about, like, for somebody that is in the public eye like that, I mean, you think of like the Chinese tennis player who like disappeared for a week, and it turned out she had in fact been nabbed by the government and was being held against her will.
Right.
So it's like, it's like
you're not helping with this.
I know. We're supposed to be the Legion of Logic, but I'm just saying, like, I look at like what examples do you have of this, of where somebody in the public eye just disappears, and it's either a scandal, like a politician running off on a weekend with their secretary. I can't remember who that was, but or
the dude who went to Argentina,
the governor of South Carolina. Yeah.
Yep. Or it's either scandal or something bad. Because
well, I mean, like, he pointed it out. It was pinned on his Twitter feed. You want to learn the truth about Zelensky regime? Google these names, and these people have like disappeared. If you haven't heard from me in 12 hours, put my name on this list.
Have you Googled those names?
No.
I am afraid to.
Yeah, I definitely would.
Do it with a VPN on.
Okay.
Do it with a VPN on. All right, we've got more news to get to. Our hopes are, that this reporter Gonzalo Lira makes it back and that we're able to hear from him. But this is what happens when you speak out against these thugs. I mean, this is exactly what happens, sadly. So.